welcome. We have got a fantastic episode today. I think you're going to love it. For our writers roundtable, we've got an entire panel. Woohoo! To join me today, some fantastic writers and authors and creatives in general, and who knows who's going to pop in later, because I can't say for sure. Joining me today is the fantastic, the marketable Megan.
Hello.
And also today is the very talented, also very published Laura. Yay! And you know him. I love him. He's my brother and technical producer, as well as writing partner, Tom. Yay!
Hello.
We have got a fantastic panel. All these people here are so much better at titles than me. Like, you just don't know. Again, my favorite teddy bear as a child was named White Bear, and it was white. And my favorite bigger stuffed animal as a child was named Lammy, because it was a big lamb. So, you know, this is all I got, okay? I'm just had very little to work with, hence my mother inventing all sorts of title games, which we will talk about in case anyone else is like title deficient like me and needs a little help practicing the gentle art of writing catchy titles so that people actually want to click on them.
Sounds good.
So where should we start? Any ideas, Tom?
Well, I guess first it's just a howdy. See, we got actually a couple people ready to go with us.
Okay. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Eva.
And BA is here. Hello,
Hello.
hello. How is the new school year going? Jenna is here. Hello, hello. Very nice. Jenna, by the way, also did last week's homework, and I shared it with everybody to enjoy her memeing of her story with the Spicy Golden Girls meme.
Yeah, I was surprised that we got several people who, really have been having fun making those memes.
Mm-hmm. And as always, if anything inspires you from this show, please be sure to tag me and anyone else here. We would love to know that you're inspired and to see what you're doing, and also to share it with a wider audience.
So, not to put too fine a point on it, but, and Gloria, you've watched it more recently, so you might be able to better quote it.
Mm-hmm.
But one a lot of us probably grew up in our childhood from, the writer of Goosebumps. Gloria and I have watched his masterclass talking about writing YA.
Highly recommend.
And he had a
this is fantastic.
Very interesting comment about titles. Well, do you want to give him justice, or should I attempt to?
I'm not sure where you're going, so.
Okay. And his point about titles was, don't even write the story till you've got the title that you think people want to be interested in. Because titles are how you introduce your story to people.
So
it is the real first impression right there on the cover. Like, I know, as much as we all talk about don't judge a book by the cover, everyone judges a book by the cover, so make sure the cover is the best foot forward.
So his point was this. Okay, so Goosebumps is for middle grade students, middle grade kids. I mean, here's the thing. If you're not in the education world, if you don't work with people of that age, you might not know middle school children hate to read. I realize that most of the people here and in the chat were probably not that demographic. They all probably all love to read. It wasn't me, though. I hated reading. Because I'm dyslexic. I did not enjoy reading because it's physically painful sometimes to read, especially when I was younger. And so, I was dissuaded to read. Okay, reading is a bit of a challenge. You have to imagine all of what you're reading. You have to translate words into visuals in your head, and that takes work. And when you're young, your brain it takes a lot of effort, so it's very difficult to convince middle school kids to read willingly. That's not a sign, and nobody's assigning Goosebumps. I mean, they may be now, but you know what I'm saying. Like, Nobody's assigning fun reads. Why do teachers only ever assign reads that like you have to be assigned? You're not going to read it. You know what I'm talking about, Shakespeare. So that was like his point of you've got to hook the kid immediately. So you got to come up with a great title, you got to come up with a great cover, and then you have to come up with a great blurb. And that's actually how R.L. Stine does like most of his hundreds of Goosebumps and like nearly 100 Fear Streets, is by coming up with a great title and even sometimes writing the back cover blurb first. Now, is this necessarily the final blurb that Scholastic's can use? It may not be, but he needs one. Hello. He needs one to sort of guide him in. So when you're writing for middle school, it really has to be about hooks, where you're just hooking the reader again and again so they'll keep turning the page, because a child will take anything to convince them to put the book down. But here's the real secret to writing for middle grade. Everybody is like a middle grade student. They're just older. They're old middle grade kids, okay? They're very old 12-year-olds.
No one really develops past middle grade.
Yeah, they're celebrating the 20th anniversary of their 12th birthday, okay? Most adult readers are still middle graders at heart. So the bottom line is, you're still convincing them with your title and your back cover blurb. You're still convincing them to and hooking them to open your book and then turn every page, because there are a million reasons, valid reasons, to not read, including, I got to go vacuum. I need to go make the kids dinner. I need to like take a shower. They have all sorts of good reasons. Yeah, me too. They've got all sorts of really good reasons to not read. So you do need to keep hooking them, because you're competing with an entire busy life. And it starts with the title. It absolutely 100% starts with coming up with a really good title. And here's the thing. If you come up with a title before you start writing the story, that title will help guide you so it does not become clickbait, because nobody likes clickbait. Nobody likes a bait and switch. They're going to feel betrayed. If you've got, like, for instance, if you mention dragons in the title and there's no dragons ever, boo. Boo to you. If you mention there's dragons in the title and it's like, oh, well, dragons exist in this world, but dragons are not actually a part of this plot line at all, boo. Boo to you. Go away. Burn, writer. Burn. Because it's rude. It's super rude. You don't promise what you can't deliver. But if you had a great title and it has dragons in the title, then you know I've got to figure out how to get dragon into this plot line. And you've got a whole plot line to figure this out. And you will figure it out by the end of your outline, because your outline is not figured out to figure out how to get a dragon in there. But if you're coming up with titles after you've written your manuscript, it is a lot harder to come up with a zingy title when you may have to rewrite a little bit of your story to fit the title. So R.L. Stine's point was, come up with a good title to start with. When you know you've got a real zinger, move on to the characters and the back cover blurb and everything to guide your story. And that is how R.L. Stine is a cult classic among children who then have now grown up to be adults, who have salty opinions when no one else writes like R.L. Stine. And what I mean by that is nobody starts with a good zingy title and a good back cover blurb and then writes their story to meet the title and the back cover blurb. And they're like disappointed, because it is great to be I could not put this down. I literally lost sleep and I regret none of it. That is exactly what you want to hear from readers, right? No matter who you're writing to, no matter your demographic, no matter who, you want to hear, I lost sleep and I'm grateful for it. It was a fantastic story. It was a wonderful adventure. I was on an emotional roller coaster and I loved every minute of it. That's what you want to hear. You absolutely want to hear. this is how you do it. The R.L. Stine method. I mean, he did not invent this method. Okay. But he did like say it in such a succinct way. It's like, it's great. It's great to remember this. If, hey, remember, you need a great title. And if you're not a great at titling, either play these title games or make friends with somebody who is good at titling and have them help you. Like, you could trade off, like, here, I'll help you edit if you help me come up with a real zinger of a title. Laura over here like, yeah, dude, I know this. I'm in the middle grade horror guru in training.
And I mean,
R.L. Stine can't hold the baton forever. Exactly. And he does not want to.
yeah.
He is like, why are there not more? Somebody needs to take this load.
And like, if you want to see like what is a good book cover, I mean, Laura's Tiny Shivers book cover is a very good book cover to succinctly show and tell the audience what they're getting in for. It's got tentacles, it's got the sky, it's got a lot of shadows. Okay, so it's going to be
that could be next
stories.
week's episode where we talk about writing back cover blurbs and pitches, like, again, because we didn't really go over. This story has everything.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't
It's got tentacles. It's got dwarves. It has something that lurks within the deep lake.
It has killer plants.
It's got killer plants.
For the back cover blurb, I find doing that helps you come up with a better query letter. And I would suggest doing that before you write your story or before you go into deep edits, because it makes you figure out what actually is the hook. Like, stuff happens, but like, how can you make it even hookier? And what can you do to make it more keep the reader engaged? Like, how can you take the character's personality and make it even more just more? And
also it tells you, like, you know, it is just like we were talking about last week of this is why you want to read the book. Why does someone who's never seen your work want to pick this up? You have to tell them they don't know the stories. And that's why, like, you know, when we were talking about the memes and meming your story of what is it that is interest to people? You know, in Glorious Hole, you can't meme about an onion story. And it's like, watch me.
Which, yes, Tom made the meme that I posted on my Instagram this week. To, you know, let people know about the Bella was free for, I think till tomorrow for everyone, at least with an Amazon account in America. And Tom was like, I can make memes for this. And that was one of the memes he made. Was the train hitting the bus.
And so, you know, when it comes, and so, you know, titles is another part, is how do you, both the titles that are interesting because it has to be both something interesting to the reader, but also something they can then tell others. Like now with search engines, naming, look, and I love you, I say this with love for writers, but you can't name your book Forks. You can't search that book.
Personally,
there are exceptions though, like It.
I was about to say, as a librarian, the title It can go to hell. Screw that. Do you know how impossible it is to find this title in a database? As a librarian, I want to tell Stephen King, please tell older, prior Stephen King to get off the cocaine. This is a terrible title. It is impossible to search. You have to look for it alphabetically, or you have to just search his name and prolific writer, and then find it among. It is a terrible title if you want to be found. So unless you are already a very well established writer, which I seriously doubt, do not pick any titles that rely on participles or simple common words. it will be near impossible for readers to find your title in a database or even to Google it. It is a nightmare.
And this actually brings up another part of, the titles aren't copyrightable, so they repeat. Finding the indie title requires the title and author name anyway. But if they don't know your name yet, you need to make sure, if you are using a title that is known by, has been used by larger writers, that your book is not that similar to theirs. Because, like, it's one thing if your book is also named It, but as long as it is about, a detective story or something, okay, there's not going to be too much overlap. People are not going to get confused. But if it's also horror, forget it. No one's ever going to find your book.
Also, if you as a writer have a first and a last name, that is very common. So, like, for instance, Megan McCarthy.
Yeah.
I would really recommend that you really think about titles that have less common words in them. So, for instance, if your title instead is It Lives, lives is not a very common word used in titles. Lives is a common word used in blurbs, but it's not actually that common in titles and book titles. So again, like, It is a terrible title, but It Lives is not that bad of a title for searching through databases. So you want to think about using less common words. And I honestly don't recommend, like, when you're in the brainstorming part of figuring out titles, like, don't worry about it. Just have a good time. Like, really, have a party, have fun coming up with titles. But when you're picking the title among your list of great titles that you've come up with, when you're picking, really get a bird's eye view of looking for titles with at least one word that is not common, that is not commonly used a lot in titles. Because that will help your title be searchable when readers are trying to recommend it to other readers. And they're like, okay, let me Google it. And, like, you want it to show up. You want, if they're searching through Amazon or Goodreads, you want it to show up at least preferably on the first page. So if you have a more common name, you need to think about less common words in your title. So, like, dragons. Although if you're writing fantasy and there's dragons, maybe not dragons. Dragons are now becoming very common for a title.
So is Prince.
Yeah, Prince is becoming, versus Wren is not. W-R-E-N, the bird. That is not a common word. So again, like, just think about it, like, in the back of your brain, not in the front. Don't let this censor you.
Yeah, I'll just do a simple search when you're thinking of your title and just see if there's something very similar. If there's not, you're good. Like I said, as long as your title is not in this, especially not in the same genre as the other ones using the same title, you're all right. It's just you don't want to be too close in the overlap, especially if another title's been used in the last decade.
Also, I will go ahead and say this. Let me caveat that with, be careful about difficult to spell words. I'm going to tell you right now, most Americans cannot spell ventriloquist correctly. They'll try, but unfortunately, not all databases will correct you or take your misspelled word and get it right. So just be aware. Like, dragon is a shorter word. It is easier to spell because it pretty much is spelled very similar to how it sounds. But ventriloquist, good luck. Cumulus, excuse me, as in cumulus clouds. Again, nobody ever spells this right. And it's not just dyslexic people. Even regular people cannot spell these words correctly if there's too many vowels.
One of my stories is Somnambulist Waking.
Oh, for hell's sake, Laura.
There's Somnambulist!
But that is a short story title.
Yeah.
And it's within a collection.
Yeah.
And so that's not as... Like, people don't actually mind as much using, odder words
Oh yeah.
in your stories. It's just don't expect them to search for it very well. I mean, you'll probably end up with, ambulance instead of somnambulant. Like, just watch. Never underestimate people. But then it is just like the memes though. The real secret is have fun. What catches your imagination will probably catch their imagination. That's like Tiny Shivers. I thought was a very good title for short story horror.
Shivers
it tells you
is
exactly
not
what
a
you get.
commonly used word in titles, and I know that from having to work in a lot of library databases.
Yeah.
Tiny actually isn't that common in titles, but it is more common, particularly among little children's books.
Mm-hmm.
But Shivers it truly is a how to tell a book is for middle grade. Shivers. Like, it just kind of screams, okay, this is going to be fun, but not like so scary that you'd never sleep again and have to see a therapist. There are books like that.
Yes.
But Tiny Shivers, yeah, okay, it's going to be fun. It's going to be scary, but not too scary. It really does sell exactly what it is, which is what you want to do. Not big shivers. No, that would be rude.
I named one of my stories "The Boy in the Wallpaper." It was paying homage to the Yellow Wallpaper short story, but I was trying to make it its own enough. Like, you'd know it was kind of horror from the title, but like the illustration of a boy in the wallpaper peels off. Like, it is a boy in the wallpaper. It's not misleading. So it's fun to try and like find other titles of stories and things similar to yours and kind of riff off of it a little bit.
Yeah, like a good title should almost double as a writing prompt.
I think it's helpful to have, like, to know the construct of how titles are constructed in various ways, so that you have kind of a template you can use when you're coming up with your own name. And you can do that by looking at, like, books in your genre and seeing kind of what the
Comp titles.
Yeah, just trying to, not comp titles, but like getting to see how they're created so that you can kind of use that same technique for yourself. And like, because different types, like you mentioned, your short stories kind of have a different, they have different rules than, say, for like a full novel. Like, there's different titling conventions. That's the word I've been looking for the whole time. Conventions. So yeah, my brain is not putting all the words together, but I think I got most of my point across.
Like, I find that a lot of short stories have really long titles, which is interesting. It's like they're trying to get as much out there about the story without it counting as part of their word count. Stop it!
Well, short stories don't really get back cover blurbs.
Yeah.
So the title has to like kind of work double for a short story. So that's what I always thought when I was like just a reader. Was okay, that's why the short story. Now, what I liked about some short story writers is they'd also, like, they'd have their title and then they'd have a little blurb that was like the equivalent of a back cover blurb, but for their short story. And I liked that because it, number one, set anticipation. But also number 2, it told me what I was going to get. So if I was not into that, I could skip it and go to the next story. And then maybe later come back when I was in the mood for that kind of story.
I think of it as the of course, all of a sudden I forgot his name. Twilight Zone.
Oh, I know who you're talking
Rod
about.
Sterling?
Yeah. The Rod Sterling intro to your short story.
Yes.
Is that, it's always in italics.
Mm-hmm.
The setting the mood, setting the situation, setting the anticipation.
Mm-hmm. But then sometimes there's collections like this one that I was in, where you could only have 2 words in a title. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an older convention. It was that to have longer titles for short stories that was really indicative of the short story magazines in the middle of the 20th century. Those magazines used to be really popular, and like post World War II in particular. Well, actually, even pre World War II. Now that I think about it.
Oh yeah.
And it was, I don't really know exactly why, but it was part of the convention of titling in these short story magazines. Eva says, yeah, and if they are in a collection, they don't get covers, which are a huge selling feature. True.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was like, and often in those, especially the pre-World War II short story magazines, they did not get a picture for each short story or even each feature short story. But I noticed in post-World War II, they started getting art made like a cover, or even just say a picture of the inciting incident that was in the magazine for each short story. So ideally, I think short stories should get pictures. I think it is a selling point. It's important, but I understand, like, it's one of my frustration, like with the Vela, that I can't load pictures for each chapter. Because I would really like that. Because, like, let's be perfectly honest, just between us, for my brownie story, I would absolutely cook each meal, because there's a different meal in each chapter practically. I would cook the meal and take a picture of the meal. I would take a picture of the table. The table set. Because it's the focus the brownies have. It's like, what's for dinner? And what's for breakfast? But Bella doesn't let me post pictures for each chapter, unfortunately, which I think is an oversight, honestly. Because people like pictures. We live in a visual hungry world.
I mean, that was part of, at least in 90s Scholastic books, that was a huge selling point for Scholastic books, was each chapter had an image to give you a sense of what was going to be in that chapter, including the Harry Potter books.
Yeah.
But also, like R.L. Stein's books, each chapter had an image that was in a block print style. And what was that one also written? That was written by a journalist with all the horror stories that everyone loved. Has the cover of like a sort of a skeletal face.
Jane Yolen?
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yeah, that one. Of each of those also had an image in the original Scholastic to go with it.
Yeah, because that spider one, the girl with the spider egg sack.
Yeah.
And they had the picture of her in the bathtub, and it was like, what the heck is going to hit me?
But that was how Scholastic really got their books sold.
Yeah.
In part.
So there was also the book Inkheart, Cornelia Funk.
I love
I don't know how to pronounce her last name. But yeah, they would have
Cornelia
Funk.
Funk.
Yeah, Cornelia Funk. Yes, huge fan.
She would have quotes in the beginning of every chapter, and that would kind of set up what was going to be in the chapter, and that was really cool.
I like the way she did it as well. I think, did she write that one of like the Unruly Princess? She's a very versatile writer. And also wrote some children's picture books.
I've met her. She's like amazing. I want to be her friend someday. Like, become a big enough author that I can just like have tea in her garden. It's like the dream.
I think it can be useful to be more familiar with different titling conventions.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, like we're talking about of like the titling conventions of a book title versus a short story title, versus the title for an anthology book.
This is the most ridiculous anthology title I've ever seen.
Nom nom. I know, I love it though.
It's called Nom Nom.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, like there's like different conventions for different, like we've talked about maybe like where we're coming up with titles and I'm like, oh, that sounds good, but it's more like an article title rather than say a YouTube title.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about that of when you are trying to figure out titles, just brainstorm. Do not censor at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep going to the creativity well and in no way censor it. But later, look at what you have written out, what you have brainstormed, and you'll start noticing like, oh, this sounds more like, for instance, an article title or a short story title. This sounds more like a book title. And, you know, don't throw those away. Don't throw the paper away. Don't save your notebook or whatever, wherever you've been brainstorming. You never know when you can go back to that and take that title and like even just adjust one word and then it will work for your new project. You just have no idea what the future holds.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really cool, like, evocative titles that I've seen for horror. Like Head Full of Ghosts, Tender as the Flesh. Like, they're very like, I don't know, they provoke a feeling or an image in your mind, especially when you know the premise. Like Tender as a Flesh is about humans can't eat animal meat anymore, so they have to eat human meat, so let's raise some humans. So it's like, oh gosh, it's just really cool how they take an image provoking title. I think sometimes title formulas are overdone. Like A Court of Mist and Fury, like the blank of blank and blank. Like there's so many of them.
Yeah,
they just kind of all run together now.
Blank and blank, you know, and it's going to be two disparate things and they put them together like, okay, that's your title. Okay.
And that's where you need, you know, images that make them stand out and, you know, other things.
There is a certain truth to when you say the title out loud, there is a lyricalness to it. It does not matter as much what convention you're sticking to or what titling trope you're trying to work with, as much as I think it really helps if it's fun to say. And I'm thinking of like recently on Amazon Prime, the movie came out, Catherine Called Birdie, which is the exact same title as the original Scholastic book, Catherine Called Birdie. That was a kind of unusual title already. And then but it was interesting enough. You knew it's about a female protagonist and that she's not going by her main name. She's got a nickname and the nickname is Birdie. And that's like enough to go, okay, well, what is it about? And the cover, the original Scholastic cover, was of a medieval girl. And, you know, you could see she was set. It looked like she was in a house or some sort of, you know, domesticity. And it was like enough to like, okay, let me flip it over and read the back cover blurb and see. So thinking of like, and again, not to say that middle school and high school book titles are the best titles. I really don't want to try to give that impression, but what can I say? Scholastic really knows their business. So, like, thinking about titles like The Witch of Blackbird Pond. Or Blackburn Pond, I think actually is what it
No, it's
was.
I thought it was blackbird. Like,
You know what?
there's a reason there's a blackbird on the cover flying.
But it's a nice title. If you say it out loud, it's actually kind of fun to say. And here's why I think it matters. If what you have written is a good read, and I certainly hope it is, the readers will want to tell someone else about what they read. And in order to tell them, they're going to at some point need to tell them the title. They'll be like, well, what is this book called? And
truly calling out.
Yes. The Lord of the
fantasy.
Rings, Return of the King, The Lost Tales, The Love of Arwen. Perfect name for a short story. So, but like again, if it's fun to say, if you're not tripping over the words, like, because like, let me tell you, just my personal pet peeve, and I have had this since I was a little kid. Character names that are impossible to pronounce because you don't know how to pronounce them, because there's like apostrophes in there for some unknown reason. And it's like, blah, blah, blah. So like what I used to do as a kid and a teenager, and even in my early 20s, and frankly probably still do, when I am reading a book and I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce this. I have no idea, because there's no pronunciation guide for how to pronounce this character's name, and the characters never discuss how it's difficult to pronounce. How do I pronounce your name? Then I just rename them. So if their name starts with a C, I'll give them a C name, and I just rename them in my head. And then when I'm telling someone about it, I am just going to give them. I'm going to tell them, instead of Kapapahar, I'm going to call him Charlie. And I will talk to someone about that as like, well, I don't know how to pronounce this, so this is what I'm calling the characters. And so my friend, who I'm then telling this story about, a basic idea of this story to, they're like, okay, so then what did Charlie do? Because, like, again, we are not here to, like, decipher a language the writer made up. I don't care. I just want to get on to the telling of the story to my friend, to see if they might be interested in reading it, so then we could discuss all the hot goss on these imaginary characters in an imaginary world. And so I have seen titles where one of the characters' names is in the title, and it's like a made-up language. And it's like, oh, Lord. And every time a patron would come into the library for, say, one of these titles, and they're like, I have written it down. I don't know how to pronounce this. So it would be like The Legend of and they're like, I just wrote it down. I don't know how to. And then did they spell it correctly? Y'all, they've never spelled it correctly in their entire life. Every one of them. I hate The Legend of Cahoon. Okay, and all the other books with this. So again, not just talking about middle grade. I'm talking about all books. I'm coming for all books here. Readers are not going to write it down correctly, and not just the dyslexic ones. They're just not going to remember it. So again, like, here I am trying to look up this book with this weird title, and then come to find out they've misspelled it, or not being able to find the book and going, here, let me try Googling it. And then the Google's like, we have no idea what you are talking about. This is not real and it does not exist. And I'm going, did you actually read it or did you dream it? Because yes, patrons will come into the library about books they dreamed about, thinking that they'll find it. And I'm like, you dreamed it? And you knew it was a dream? And you just assumed it's real? What world do you live in where all your dreams are real?
I mean, like, there's the fancy professional way to do it.
I include the IPA for all of my weird names because International Phonetic Alphabet is my second language. Yes. If you want to do that, that's great. Readers will really try to use it, or they'll come into the library and ask, could you please tell me how to pronounce this? And not all librarians know how to read phonetics, but, luckily they came to me, and I got an A+ in phonetics class. I was the top of my class when I graduated. The Legend of Coughing Profusely, yes. So it's something. Hello, Heather.
I
It's
feel like
something
you're coming
to
after
be-
the cosmic horror side.
Yes.
Oh, cosmic horror is, let's be honest. I love cosmic horror. I love cosmic horror, but it's late to the game for who came up with this, and do they even remember to spell it the same way throughout the entire story?
So here's what I'm going to say. In Judaism, we have a solution to the I don't know how to read the phonetic alphabet. No problem. Here's the solution. It rhymes with this. And it could be one word, it could be two words, it could be a whole phrase. But honest to God, and if you don't believe me, go find at your local library a book called The Joys of Yiddish. And you just look up every word in The Joys of Yiddish has a rhymes with this. And it's so like, okay, so let's see. What is a weird word? Chutzpah. Rhymes with tutzpah. That's what they'll literally write. TOOTS-PAH. Tutzpah. Chutzpah rhymes with tutzpah. It doesn't have to be a real word. And people understand, okay, so it sounds kind of like this. You're close enough, you'll be fine. I wish more writers did this. Please, if you've got, yes, it is a wonderful book. Okay, every single word in The Joys of Yiddish has a joke to help you remember the definition of the word. I think it's fantastic. Like, honestly, I wish dictionaries had this. So it's honestly inadvertently a joke book. Eva says that's how I would introduce myself with the name. I go by like, hello, I'm Tyann. Rhymes with Diane, but with a T. Exactly. But again, if you do have characters with unusual names, or you've got apostrophes in those names, or any kind of weird vowel combinations, you could have a guide in the beginning or the end of the book with everybody's name and what it rhymes with, so that all your readers actually know how to pronounce it when they're talking to their friends and they don't feel self-conscious about, I don't know if I'm butchering this. Yeah, I don't know either. Like, how do you pronounce? Where was it? How do you pronounce this? Is it a Brandon? A Brandon? I don't know. What am I going to do with that?
Or like, I know, what was it, Doll's one of our main characters is, it's a common name for where she was thinking of, which is, Northeastern Europe. But we don't see the name Tibor very often around here, so you can just do rhymes with Seymour.
Mm-hmm.
Feed me Seymour.
Suddenly Seymour. So, but I bring it up because, again, if you put one of these unusual names in the title, readers are going to struggle. And then when they're Googling it, they're probably not going to spell it right. And then you're on, praying that Google remembers your title exists, which that does not magically happen. Charlie says, I use the translations to my most incomprehensible character names. Ghost Echo's name isn't Ghost Echo, but that is what their name means. Yeah.
Make it something easy for them to remember that it's memorable.
Mm-hmm. But like, that is what I would suggest is, even if you have an unusual title, make it sound good when they say it. That it sounds lyrical. It's fun to say. Tiny Shivers is fun to say. The Witch of Blackbird Pond is fun to say. There's a lot of B's and P's. Beep, 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 beep. It's fun to say. And it's a little bit lyrical, so it's actually a little bit easier to remember. All these decades later, and I've remembered the title.
And here's another trick. If you look at, the poll we've got running, I did what I thought of as the most common forms of names in modern times. which is, as we talked about, 1 or 2 words. But then we also have both puns, which are easy to remember because we're used to knowing that pun, like you are talking to a specific audience, or to parody.
Say cheese and die.
Oh yeah, what a great title.
Yeah. Or we can parody a known title so that the reader only has to remember that 1 word or 2 word change, and it's a rhyming change often. And these all make it easier for them to remember these titles.
Mm-hmm. Like The Killing Season. It's a play on a common concept, like to everything there is a season. But nobody talks about The Killing Season. But it's a great title because it is a play on this concept. And the full sentence. Which again, if you've got a zinger, Charlie says their actual name is, oh Lord of Hell.
Nefsha Narsha.
Sure. But Ghost Echo is easier to remember.
To which all I can say is, Charlie, are we sure that's not an elder god in Human Guise? Because that sure sounds right there with, Yolartha Hotep.
There's got to be some apostrophes in there secretly.
Is that the difference between an actual character and an elder god? Is there aren't enough apostrophes in that name? Like, say we put an apostrophe between Nef and Shah.
Oh, I know there's an apostrophe in there. I just feel it in my bones.
I like Jenna. Yes, alliterations for the win.
Yeah.
We want them to be memorable, and one of the ways you do that is by using stuff that they already remember. That's why rhyming words work, or parody, or puns.
Yeah, so there's what is it? What's his name? The Oxford lawyer. A Time to Die. Grisham. There's a Time to Kill, because there's the Time to Die. And him playing with these phrases we know, maybe from Bible or things children say, even though these books are for adults, of playing on known phrases. There, I cut it out. We knew it. You've been outed. Conlanged their native language. I knew it. I was like, I feel it in my bones. There's apostrophes here. You know it when they do it. I'm on to you. Is it sci-fi without apostrophes in the name? It's not 90s sci-fi.
I think I only had 1 character with an apostrophe in their name in my sci-fi.
It is okay to have apostrophes in the name, but again, wouldn't it be great if either the character said what it rhymes with, or you have a little guide? Wouldn't it be great?
Or often, if you have with sci-fi, if you have humans there with the aliens, the humans can respond. Then I will call you and use a name that sounds very similar to it, so at least they know. Like I've seen plenty of where then I will call you David. Instead of Da'afa Shikhan, of like I will call you David. That's similar enough. Just that was truly. I mean, yeah, it is an English colonial thing, but it's just the English. We're bad at other names. We accept it. But yeah, it probably is about time for us to take a break.
Yes, I've loaded up a lovely Halloween timer.
Made by local talent.
Author tubers. What?
Made by local talent.
Local talent, yes.
And I think when we get back, let's talk about one of, at least to us, one of our easiest title games. And we will talk about going to search out all the classic titles from your genre.
Yeah,
How
like
about fun?
okay, so next week we could talk about writing blurbs and book reviews because blurbs and reviews go hand in hand together. What do you think?
But when we come back from this break,
Yeah,
we're just going to be talking about title parodies and puns.
And we'll play our first title game?
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, now seems like a lovely time to do, important biological things like check in with your bladder. Is it snack time? Might it in fact be bagel time? It could be. Is it tea time? I mean, it is tea time actually for most of North America right now. Yes, you should absolutely. It's October, Laura. Make some tea. I know you have a fantastic collection.
I do.
Yes. So now is a wonderful time to make some tea, have a little snacky snack, and when we come back, more. We'll see y'all in a few minutes. Boo. Well, hello, hello, hello. Fancy meeting you all here.
Quesadilla.
Yum.
Ooh, yum.
I am working on the second half of my bagel. And Tom brewed some tea.
Forgot about the tea.
What is it? You need to go turn on the water.
I got myself a glass of water
Ah.
so I can stay nice and hydrated.
Very nice. Yeah, the house smells, or at least the living room now smells of mints brewing. He's like, am I gonna get some tea, Tim? He's like, yeah, what does brew?
Like, it's an herbal tea. Give it a few.
It takes a little bit, yeah.
But yeah, one of the things I was reminded of when we were talking about, doing titles is I don't remember the original thought, other than maybe it was just after Gloria watched the R.L. Stine class. And it was, all right, we need titles. So we went through, and for whatever reason, we ended up on classic detective titles.
Oh, the Nancy Drew ones?
No, like just, from the past, Maltese Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
And all we did was we went through and found these lists of classic detective story titles. We just looked up, classic detective stories. And we looked at all these titles, and then we just started, riffing on them, of doing parodies and puns and just our own, hot takes. Only slightly related. I was watching, what was it? Oh, I think on YouTube, the guy who does, was it Toy Galaxy, was talking about the origins of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And he brought up that the person who made the original movie came up with it as sort of a joke on cheesy B movies, specifically when he went to go see Attack of the Mushroom Men. And he's like, all right, what would be an even sillier thing to attack than mushrooms? And he's like, tomatoes. How in the world could tomatoes attack? Let's, that would just be a ridiculous title, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Or it's Attack of the Tomatoes, and it's like, but we need more. Killer. They'll kill you, tomatoes. And that was the origin of the movie, and everything was just, what is even sillier than this title of this silly movie to begin with? And I think it's like, it is a bit easier than when you're just trying to come up with new titles on your own, especially when you're beginning working on creating, interesting titles, is go find other people's titles and then riff on them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other reason for this that pays off is learn from others, and that this is essentially how mockbusters are done: is take something people already know and riff on it until they will have some vague familiarity with it, and then they'll go, okay, but what is this? I'm kind of curious. So instead of the Maltese Falcon, what was it? In Futurama, the Maltese wasn't the Maltese liquor, but it's like the Maltese whiskey or something.
Maltese bourbon, something like that.
Of we already know we're going to riff on the Maltese Falcon.
Okay. Yes, I did find some title generators, and they're just doing the exact same thing we're talking about. Licensed for Ruin, White Instinct, The Butcher in the Night. They're literally riffing on naming conventions.
Mm-hmm.
The Visitor in the Entrance.
And this is what I was trying to explain earlier, is like you take these naming conventions and then you play with them to come up with new ideas and come up with lots of titles this way. It's a great way to get a lot of ideas, which is great because, as they say, it's when it comes to creativity, it's quantity over quality. If you want to come up with something creative, you got to just keep making more and more.
And like
Death
if you
of the Chinese corgi.
And if you know if you know the original books, you see where they are truly just riffing on known titles. But if you don't, you're just like, well, that's an interesting title. I'm kind of curious.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, A Touch in the Dark. If that's a romance title, like, I don't want that touch.
Well, that's a supernatural romance novel.
I know. It's just like,
The question is, are they a ghost, a werewolf, or a vampire?
But I did want to show, like, there are, like, if you really do feel like you have no idea what we're talking about, and you're just like, I don't know, but I do know I need something. Play with these generators. There's tons of them online. They are free. Play with them so that you get a vibe for it. Also, like, so for instance, there's some that are like truly what I would call what is the word I'm looking for? The more old-fashioned version of a generator.
Are you talking about the Mad Libs?
Hold on. Okay. I may disappear because my browser is apparently like, no.
Oh no.
You've overloaded us too much.
And Glory's frozen now. Oh.
Uh-oh. But I mean, yeah, part of the secret of creativity is you have to have fun. So, and one of the ways to have fun is to lower the expectations on yourself. And that's where riffing on knowns come in. Well, that's awkward.
Haunting? Okay. Does that help?
There we go.
It's still got my other one listed. I just moved it so you can't see it. Okay, now it's gone. All right. What I was thinking of was this, where it's like,
oh yeah,
your favorite fictional character's name, your certain, like you play with these different, just these random shining witness, shining wives, shining history. Mm-hmm.
I do kind of a similar thing when I'm naming characters. I'll come up with like dozens of names that I like for both first names and last name. And then I'll just like go, which one sounds good together, which one has that kind of sound that I'm looking for and has that vibe that I'm looking for and the connotations and all of that.
I like Poison Bones.
And the other part is save all of them, because just because it's not something to use now doesn't mean it won't be of use later.
Mm-hmm.
Like somewhere Glory has a writing pad with like 50 titles on it for, for stories for us to write. And also it's a good source of, writing prompts and creativity of when you're not sure where to go. Here's stuff to go look at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so another way that we've played this game. Let me try to make it a little bit larger for you, so it'll show you. You can actually see along. Okay, there. That's a little better. Movie titles are something that most of us are writing books.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, because you're changing media, then you can kind of play with it a little bit more. Like, you're not as in danger of copying. You know what I mean? So here is a list of, and I'm literally just going with crime thriller films because Wikipedia has a list by decade, no less. And you just look at the titles: Assigned to Danger. How about Assigned to Love? Assigned to Suspect? Assigned to you just something, right?
Time to the clock.
Brain. Assigned to lingerie.
Crime. Yes, assigned to crime. Assigned to a gun. And you just play with it. So, okay, now let's do so there's the Blue Dahlia. How about the Purple Posy?
The Black Parrot.
The Black Impatient. The Black Begonia. I don't know. You just make some crap up. And you just write all of yours down, even though you think they're silly, like I feel right now. Okay, Murder, My Sweet. Death, My Darling. How about Death, My Brother? Again, like you're playing with, or Maiming My Mother. Maiming, my mother. Again, I want to point out grammar matters. Maiming My Lover. You just play with these. Chicago Deadline. It could be the Kansas City Deadline about an assassination. I don't know. The Toronto Deadline.
The Los Angeles
Deadline. The Midnight Train to Syracuse. I don't know. You're just playing around with titles.
Sedition Incorporated.
Ooh, I like it.
The Midnight Train to Podunk.
Yep.
How about to Saskatoon?
Ooh. So Paper Bullets. It could be,
Ride the Purple Hippopotamus.
Right? To Ride the Purple. Is that a drug reference? Well, now I have to read the back of the letter. I don't know it, but it sounds like an interesting ride. Crime Incorporated, but you could have like any kind of word incorporated, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could have Thrilling Incorporated. You could have Boring Incorporated. You could have whatever. You can play around with all of these naming conventions. And I just want to point out again, these are only 1940s crime thriller films. So this is like such a small slice of a much greater medium. Dark Passage. Dark Alley. Let's see.
Well-lit passage.
Well-lit passage. A shady passage to nowhere.
Shadow Corridor.
Yes, Shadow Corridor. I love it.
And then sometimes you just, you invert them as you are thinking about these themes and concepts. So, I was thinking, my original thought with the trains and stuff just came with the traveling assassins. Like, well, of course, assassins are traveling. It's like, okay, so let's reverse it to be something unexpected. The homebody assassin.
Uh-huh.
And then becomes wait, what? Or I guess also just the hometown assassin.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, the hometown assassin? I would definitely flip it over to read the back cover blurb on that. The Fatal Hour.
The assassin who became a couch.
To the ends of the block.
The Glass Alibi. The Delicate Alibi.
Too Early for Tears.
Mm-hmm.
Too early for tears, too late for regret.
There we go.
Too late for laughter.
Too early for trauma.
Mm. Too early for trauma. Just in time for trauma. That's a weird title. But like this is the game. This is literally the game my mother taught us to play because I was so bad at naming things and doing titles.
Trauma she beat.
2 o'clock courage. How about
4 o'clock rock.
let's see. 4 o'clock bravery. 4 o'clock compassion.
I like that.
6 p.m. 6 o'clock
Cowardice.
1 o'clock entourage.
like you literally just can play with these forever. There's no right or wrong, okay? There's absolutely no right or wrong because you're just playing around. I live in danger. How about I live in ridiculousness? I live in trauma. I live in
Toronto.
I live in Raccoon Land. I live in the asylum. Whatever. Or she lives in the asylum, or they live in the asylum, or they live in trauma. They live in.
There's that cool one.
They live in the quiet.
The window with no room.
So, like, again, like, this is the game. You just find yourself a list of any titles. It doesn't have to be movie titles, but let's be honest, it's fun. And, like, Kiss Me Sweetly is the original phrase that Kiss Me Deadly is doing a play on words. Also, by the way, get a load of this poster. Red Kisses, White Hot Thrills, latest H-bomb. What?
She doesn't look very into it.
She's not looking like she's into this.
No.
But like the original phrase for that generation that it was aimed at was Kiss Me Sweetly. Or Kiss Me Tenderly. Was another play on that. So I just want to point out, like, that's exactly what these titles are. They are doing the exact same thing we're doing. They are play on words. They are playing around with known conventions. You can do this too. Murder at the Vicar's Garage.
And also, once you find one you like, you can turn these into series.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whatever reason, we're just going to excuse my brain right now is just stuck on Assassin.
Okay.
So it was, Assassin's Guide to Toronto. And then it's like, but I could just turn this into a joke of the Baker's Guide to Toronto. Mm-hmm. And then you can have different ones of, the Baker's Guide to Chicago. Of just, as a, or pick your, what's the job your character's doing.
Right.
And have them be in a town and just have them be exploring.
The Assassin's Guide to New Orleans. I would honestly flip over to read the blurb on that. I mean, I would be curious.
Because what that, and you'll realize very quickly what that tells you is this is for people who like travel and want to know what that town or city feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Arena of narcolepsy.
The Assassin's Guide to San Francisco.
The narcoleptic guide.
No,
sorry. The narcoleptic guide. To
the narcoleptic. I was thinking of what was it? The Assassin's Guide to Bakersfield. Like, you have ended up in a bad place when you're in Bakersfield. I have never.
Is that a misspelling in the Phoenix City story under?
That is how it's spelled.
No, it's actually how it's spelled. Wow.
Oh no, City Story was an old phrase. That's
but Phoenix is spelled wrong.
Like they're talking about the spelling of Phoenix.
Oh.
And that is an old spelling for Phoenix. See, Phoenix City, Alabama. That is actually how it's spelled.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, it's Alabama, and we're just going to leave it at that. Okay.
I feel like that self-explains.
I feel like it's self-explanatory. But yeah, no, that's a real location. By the way, there's also a Utah, Alabama, and it is not spelled. It is spelled like if you phonetically. It is like EUTAW, Alabama.
I know there's a city of Vulcan.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
Wasn't that showcased in American Gods?
But they put it in a
I don't know.
different city. I mean, they put it in a different state.
Oh.
A Night Without Stars. And that is again a play on words of A Night with Stars. That's actually a semi-famous play to the people who were alive, post World War II in 1950. That's a play on a play. I think that's actually a play title. So a lot of these movie titles are actually a play on known theater titles, like play theater, not movie theater.
Really, the secret to creativity is just riff on another genre in another realm, and people think you're so original. Hence,
so Portland expose. How about Toronto expose? Kansas City expose. St. Louis expose. Do you see like what I'm trying to get at here? 6 bridges to cross.
6 bridges to burn.
Yep. It's you could just make it like the trials of, but it's just bridges. The sleeping city. How about the narcoleptic city? The insomniac city.
The raptured city.
How about, instead of speaking of murder, how about speaking of death? Speaking of destruction.
But I mean, you can do this with any genre, any realm. Just pick one. So, like, if you are writing in sci-fi, go find the list of sci-fi films from that time, from a different time.
So instead of the unholy wife, how about the unholy angel, the unholy vicar? Just the unholy child. Just figure something else out, right? You play around with like these basic. So we've got the tattooed stranger,
the son of the unholy.
How about the tattooed cat? And you just keep playing with this. But again, I want to point out you do need to write these down or record yourself while just an audio recording or use your phone to just record you so you have a video of you doing this that you can then later go back to. If you don't want to ruin your riffing fun, just record yourself audio or video wise and then go back to that later so that you can then write down all the titles. Yes, probably 80 to 90% of whatever you riff is going to be trash. So what? It costs you literally zero. It costs you nothing but a little time where you were playing a game. And if you even get out of 1 hour of riffing, you got one title that you're now going to use to either as a writing prompt or you're going to use it for a story that you already have. That is an hour well spent.
One of
They're expensive, y'all. You would not believe what you have to pay editors to come up with a good title. You are paying a lot. So 1 hour of your life, that is nothing.
So that actually kind of reminds me of a beginner misunderstanding people tend to have about the creative arts in general, which is, and just go with me on this. I swear it does come back around. And to me, the easiest way to explain this is with photography, because that's where I'm most familiar and where I first really encountered it. If you talk to professional photographers, the ones that are paid tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for their work, and you actually ask them the real meat and potato questions, you'll come across some odd information you would never guess. Like for me, the thing that I was surprised to find out is even with professionals, ones who've been doing this for decades, when you're shooting film and there's 36 images per roll, most professional photographers consider it a worthwhile effort if they get 1 to 2 images per roll that are actually worth working on and creating a piece of art with. In digital, because digital requires even less effort, you're not as conscious about rolls or anything, it actually goes to about 1 out of 100 image to 1 out of 200 images are usable. That is a professional's rate of creating, usable images. Is you don't realize how many duds because they don't show those.
Oh yeah.
And the same goes for any creator out. So if you have 50 to 100 titles and only 1 or 2 you think are usable, that's actually probably a really good rate. For a non-professional, for a true amateur, the rate is probably closer to around 1 out of 500. Of like, people don't realize just how good they are innately at a lot of tasks compared to other people, because you're only inside your own head. And the professionals don't often talk about how much work they had to discard that wasn't usable, because that only degrades them in other people's eyes. Like, people really don't.
People are very judgy and don't have any foundation for their judginess.
So you only tell them about how well you do. Like, I would never ask Laura to ever say how long it takes for her to work on, her CG work, and how many times she has had to just disregard an entire hours of work because there was one small mistake at the beginning, and it has now spiraled everything, and it's just, you have to go back to the basic.
Yep.
Or the file crashes and you have to start over again.
Yep. That's just so much time gone.
But the difference between a professional and an amateur is a professional assumes this type of stuff will happen, is part of the work, and factors that into their effort.
Or you get the shot, you work on it, you do iterations with director's notes, and then the shot gets cut from the movie. It's like, dang it! Or the pilot episode doesn't get picked up, so nobody will ever see it.
It has impressed me how much, like, real professionals, people who get paid for their artistic work, how much of their time, percentage-wise, you never see because that stuff got cut. Something went wrong at some point, and that effort was cut. It's honestly, with most professionals, like at least in the creative arts, it's probably somewhere between 90 and 95% of all their professional time and effort, you never see the product of, because something happened in the process where it was obvious it had to, throw it out and get abort it. Let's move on. It's not going to work.
I am fascinated. I found a new one in the world of mechanics that I have not heard of anywhere in automotive, but truly shows you're paying for somebody's experience, not for the parts. Just like at a restaurant, you're not paying for the food, the cost of the food. You're paying for all those experiences and the prep and what they know to make this repeatable. And it was about, in this case, working on the AC units in cars. And one of the things this guy pointed out is whenever someone comes in for AC repair and the car is more than 2 years old and the AC is having some problems, one of the things he just does automatically, if they have to actually check the system, like is it leaking or something, is he goes and replaces the valves on the in and on the high pressure and the low pressure ports. They are just, these little tiny things. It's like, if there's no pressure in this, we've already had to do that anyway. Might as well replace these, because so many of these, they have a tiny little rubber gasket. And if these get malformed at all, and a lot of them even come from the factory with small defects, you won't notice, but they will leak. They will leak a small amount you won't pick up, but in 2 to 3 years, they will be back because the pressure's low, because it's vented. And that is what, shows the professional experience side of the, do I have to or do I need to replace this little valve every time someone comes in? No, but it's an extra $5, $10, and then most likely I won't ever see them for this problem again. It's hard to tell, it's, but, and it's the same thing of professionals. Like, if you're doing creative, a professional's real skills, knowing when to save their work and when to back it up so they can go back when or like when notes come back of, I like this, but I want this part changed instead. Well, if they saved a previous iteration before they'd even done that work that they didn't care for, that just saved them half the time or more, because you've still got the models, you've got a lot of the other information programmed in. You just have to change these aspects. Versus beginner will have only saved the end product, and now they have to start over. And that's what I kind of want to also remind of. Yeah, you save all these titles. It's not that they're all amazing, but you don't know when they'll come in handy later. All of a sudden, you've got, when people talk about, I don't have any stories to talk about, or I'm not that creative, and I need more writing prompts. And it's like, there's a lot of ways to come up with writing prompts, and there's a lot of stories you have. You just haven't realized that they're stories. One of the past things Gloria and I worked on is we talk about Tales from the Back Room, which was just all these stories back when we worked in a video store that people would tell us. Well, we made little notes about them because these are interesting stories, but people didn't realize these are interesting stories. And you can only remember so much, so we wrote it down. Because 100 different stories is hard to remember on a given moment of, what do you have in this realm? Okay, I got stories about this, and it's a lot easier if you got a list. But yeah, don't judge yourself of, most of these are nothing. You would be surprised. Also, when you come back in a few years, you'd be surprised at the ones you do like now. Things change. We save, one of the things we heard in photography a lot was, do not delete all the images you don't like or you can't work with when you are starting photography.
Oh, yeah. That is one of the things the professional photography experts told us. No matter how much you think you want to save like space on your hard drive, under no circumstances do you delete even the worst pictures, unless you just literally cannot identify anything in the picture. It's just so blurry that like it's just blobs. It's blobs of color. Like you have no idea what it is. No one else could figure out what it is. Those you can delete. Nothing. You are not to delete anything else, because you never know what you took of like an off the cuff picture of will 20 years later pay off. The story our Pulitzer Prize winning professor told us was about the whole in the Monica Lewinsky scandal. The one photographer who made a butt ton of money from the scandal he was a regular photojournalist. I can't remember for which newspaper. It may have been the Washington Post. But anyway, he just was always assigned. It might have been the Washington Post, because it was like he lived around DC, and he went to all of these political events, and his job was just to take pictures for the newspaper. Just get us a picture of the politician shaking hands. Like that's like a normal back in the day. That was a normal photojournalist assignment. Okay. He took pictures of President Bill Clinton 2 years prior from the Monica Lewinsky scandal. He had taken a picture of Clinton at one of his rallies, and that was the picture that he was able to resell so many times for royalties through Getty. Was when the Monica Lewinsky scandal initially hit, it hit the newspapers. He was like, hold up, let me go look through all my Clinton stuff that I hadn't thrown away, and we're talking film back. So he goes through all his film, because he's like, I thought I had a picture of Clinton hugging various women. Let me see if any of them are Monica Lewinsky. He had one picture, and it is, I believe to this day, it's the only picture from the 90s where Clinton is in the same shot as Monica Lewinsky, and they are very much in a familiar contact. Everybody by now has seen this picture. And that was the picture. And that was why our photographer professor was like, never throw away your pictures. You never know. Not that you're like necessarily going to work as a photojournalist, but you never know when a picture you took years prior will be useful. Because for all you know, you took a picture of a building that, was decimated in a hurricane. And it turns out no one ever took a picture of this building because it was like a know-nothing building before. But now everybody wants a picture, and you're the only one who has a good professional picture of this building. And now they're willing to actually pay you for your picture. So that was what we were taught, was don't throw away the stuff that you think is not important. Archive all of that, because you never have any kind of knowledge of what will be useful later. What if you took a picture of a child? 40 years later, that child becomes president. And here you have a professional portrait of this child. People are going to want it. That president will want a copy. They will want a good professional picture. And you are one of the very few people that ever took a picture of this kid. You just have no idea what the future holds. So don't throw away your photographs. Even the ones that you think, oh, there's nothing to this. It's not a nice picture. It's just, it's got like issues. I should have posed it better, whatever. Don't throw any of those away. You never know what will be useful, or, and this I've learned the hard way now too. When you took the picture, you may not have had the skill to edit it correctly. But here you are now, 5, 10, 15 years later, and you can look at the picture and go, oh, I know exactly how to fix this. Or technology has finally caught up, which has also happened to me. And now you can fix the picture. I have this wonderful, cool picture I took on film of this man fishing in a municipal river, but it was at sunset. He's a darker skinned man, and he is standing in front of under a bridge, under a roadway bridge. So it's dark behind him, and it's at sunset, so it's already low light. I composed it well, but there's not enough contrast in the film. And it's kind of hard to make it out. However, fast forward 15 years, and what I did do was I went ahead and I scanned it in. Tom had a special film scanner, and I scanned it in. So I have it digitally, but again, even Photoshop didn't quite have the AI technology. However, that was 10 years ago. However, now, 15 years after I took the original picture, there is plenty of wonderful AI technology where I can get the man to pop against this dark background at sunset, and he'll look really cool. So it can be that. Now, while, yes, we are talking about photography, ultimately, we're talking about the creative arts.
So these titles and your short story ideas that you may right now go, and there's no real story here. I can't really make this into something interesting. Save it, because in 10 years, with, you've had more years of experience, there's different context to the world. You don't know what will actually now be of interest, but you still have to have that thought. And so these will re-spark that thought. Or you may now know how to take this short story to somewhere interesting, or to make an interesting idea and concept. Save those. Just because you don't know what to do with the short story right now, or, in Gloria's case, often don't know how to end it.
It's true.
Or you've got the beginning, you got the end, but where's the middle?
Yeah, maybe you just haven't learned how to middle it.
But either way, but I don't have a full, complete story to deliver.
Yeah, it makes me sad. So many people tell me, oh, I threw away all those notebooks from 10, 20 years ago. Just because you didn't have the skill at the time, or even 10 years later, doesn't mean these stories are worthless. Whether you mean to become a better writer or not, the back of your brain is always working. You are becoming a better writer every day you breathe. Even when you write nothing. The back of your brain is working on the problem of, I don't know how to write middles.
And And
Even when
surprised
you
how
don't pick up a
quickly.
pen for a whole month, the back of your brain is like, but I'm still going to solve this problem because brains are addicted to puzzles, y'all. All human brains are addicted to puzzles.
And you'd be surprised how quickly you can develop those skills. I mean, Laura went from very simple stories, which she started, is it 2 or 3 years ago now, to
2.5.
I started my first ever story, which was my YA. I think it was 2019 Nano. And so I worked on that for a year, and then I wrote my first short story August 2020.
I mean, but your short stories at first were, just simple plots, and then they quickly changed as you grew, and you grew very quickly. But it's hard to know where your skills will develop in the future from where you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not everyone's going to be like Laura and develop at a superhuman pace with her, writing skills and understanding, but you really don't know. You don't know what will finally click. And now all of these seem simpler and easier to solve the problems of.
So that's why it's important to keep all your stuff, even like this, where we're playing title games, because you really cannot forecast how your skills will improve and hone and what you will be able to resolve or fix or just be inspired by your own stuff. I mean, I'll admit it. During the pandemic, one of the things I did, since I had nothing to do, was I collected all of my old notebooks. So when I was 15, I had this man cast a spell on me and made me promise to never throw away my old notebooks. And he literally cast a spell, y'all, on the street, no less. So anyway, I still have every notebook every journal I've ever written in since I was a kid, because this man cast a spell that I promised I wouldn't throw away or destroy any of them. And because it was a spell that worked, it also saved all my notebooks so they didn't get ruined by Hurricane Katrina when my house lost half its roof, because literally the week before I had moved all of my notebooks and journals from the back half of the house where the roof was taken off to my bedroom, which retained its roof. Anyway, the spell works. But my point just being, so during the pandemic, fast forward now, I was like, since I, have all these notebooks and journals, let me go through them. And there are stories I'd written starting when I was 15. And I thought before I went through them, and partly why I had been procrastinating doing this for 5 years, was because they were all, quote, dumb. They're all dumb. They're all boring or dumb or very immature, infantile. There's no value to it. You can't polish this turd to make it shine. And then I went through and started reading through my stuff. And I spent months and months off and on reading through all these various notebooks and journals. And I'm going to tell you, I was surprised because plenty of these stories I now, at 40, knew how to edit and fix. Whereas even at 30 and 25, I had no clue. Every time I'd read it, I'd be like, this is just crap. But that man did enchant me, so I guess I'll just put it back on the shelf in my closet and ignore it again. And so I'm just here to tell you, please don't throw away your stuff. You have no idea when. And by the way, the 10 years prior to the pandemic, I did not work on my writing. I read about how to write because I was curious, and sometimes I was really bored at work. And I would read an article, and I did not want to read the news articles. So I'd go read a writing article, something about how to write about engaging characters or how to write a character arc. But it was just these articles. I didn't go do the homework. I didn't do what it said to do. I just read the article like for entertainment reasons. But somehow all of that ended up in the back of my brain. And then when I read through these stories during the pandemic, it was like, hold up. I think I know what to do on this one. Or I think I know where to take this story so it has an ending. Or I think I know how to begin this story because maybe I had written the beginning of it. Or I wrote, essentially a little story that's really more of a character profile. I wrote about one of these stories I wrote actually in the lobby, the waiting room at my doctor's office while I waited to see my doctor for a UTI. This is like so long ago. This is like now it's 20 years ago. There I was waiting, and I wrote about a goddess who every time she goes to the movies, some people have to sit in front of her and block her view. And it is so infuriating. It'll be a totally empty movie theater. And they sit right there, and it's like, excuse me, I'm literally here. And they literally will turn around startled. Oh, I thought I was the only one here. Like, dude, I am literally here. I was in a theater all by myself, and then you sat down right in front of me. And this keeps happening to her. And I wrote this. And now I'm like, ooh, I kind of like this character profile. This in a story, this actually tells a lot about this character and how people interact with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun and it's kind of funny. And I had not thought about this story in 17 years. And now I'm like, oh, there's something here. Whereas before I just thought it was drivel to distract me from my tummy hurt. I have a UTI. I thought I was writing it to distract myself on my steno pad while waiting for the doctor to see me, where they would inevitably pee in a cup. And now, all these years later, this story, I guess, has been percolating in the back of my brain. And I'm like, ooh, I like this character. She's funny and quirky. She's a little sassy. I like her. I have to find somewhere to put her. I have to find a story to put her in. She's kind of fun. So that is my point of don't throw away your creative works. Just archive them. Store them. When you're like, I don't know what to do. I have nothing to write. I have nothing to publish. I have nothing to finish. The answer is go through your notebooks. Waiting for the doctor to see me. But it burns.
Is that not like the prequel to the Don and Noble story?
Yes. I have written Doctor Who fanfic in which the Daleks set up a Doctor fan club newsletter about the Doctor, and all it is, it's a zine. So think about like an intergalactic zine on their, what is it? I can't remember what the Dalek subnet is, but on their network is like this little zine that Daleks write in. Anybody who's had an interaction with the Doctor writes in, this is my story of how I met the Doctor, and I too could not kill him because he's so beautiful, filled with hate. And that is literally, and yes, I have written this Dalek fanfic. It's so
And all the Daleks essentially sound like high school.
Yes,
girls.
high school girls. And that is why Daleks keep falling down stairwells, by the way. That is my reasoning, because if you notice in old Doctor Who, Daleks fall down stairwells a lot. But that is why, it's because they're swooning. He's so beautiful, filled with so much beautiful hate. And then after their experience, where if they survived an experience with the Doctor, they write into the zine of, this is my encounter with the Doctor. And everybody reads it and they become semi-famous for a little while. Yes.
Pretty much.
So yeah, that is that is my Doctor Who fanfic that I wrote. It's terrible and wonderful all at once.
Roy is crying to go outside, so I need to go.
Yeah, as I say,
Okay.
It's about time for a break.
It's not time for break, and I think Megan has
Yes.
an appointment she's got to go to.
Yes, so I will be disappearing during the sprint.
So, yes, have fun, y'all. And we're going to do a bio sprint, another bio breaky break. And when we come back, we will play another title game. I have another list of these family domestic drama movie titles from the 40s and 50s. It's going to be super fun. So we'll see y'all. And some of y'all in approximately 10 minutes, and some of y'all are going to go for a walk, maybe come back, maybe not, who knows. But have fun, y'all.
I hear the bread calling.
I
The
know.
street bread calls to Sir Roy. Street bread. Okay, bye-bye. me, Mitty, me. Boopity boop. Ain't nobody here but us chickens. Ain't nobody here at all. Do 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 do. Na 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 na. Bam ba da ba da ba da ba da ba da ba da. Da 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 da. Burp 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 burp. Burp 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 burp. Burp 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 burp. Tom, where are you?
Sorry.
I literally had to pull out my air trombone and you still did not show up.
I forgot I had muted.
Did you miss my air trombone?
Probably.
It was great. Nobody who doesn't play trombone knows how great a job I did. As I played a tiny trombone. Bless you.
It's true.
Did it rattle your brain?
Just, sneezing. Usual.
Salty tea.
But yes, titles are for fun. Let's have fun. Before we go on to the next game, another reason to do these type of titles and to just have fun with, what are all the different kinds of titles I could make for my book or my story or whatever, is titles like, if you show up on our Wednesdays when we do titles for the Monday show, one of the reasons why we do that and we have everyone help me and help us participate and come with a lot of different titles is titles also tell you what are key words for your story. They tell you what people might search for. They give you ideas of hashtags to use. Titles are more useful than people realize because they are ways to summarize the point of your story, the point of your article, the reason people should watch. And there's always more, there's in general more than one reason. So even if it doesn't get into the title, it tells you what to let people know about. So what hashtags to hit up, what possible memes to let people know about, so that they are more likely to show up and enjoy, even if the title doesn't tell them instantly, they may still find it for other reasons. It's like 80% to 90% of the title of the hashtags we use on our Monday shows are based on the titles we came up with the previous Wednesday. So what list are we looking at this time?
Okay, these are drama films from the 1940s. They are organized by year. Okay, 1940, Brigham Young, The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Dictator, Kitty Foyle, Newt Rockney, All-American, Lillian Russell, Rebecca, The Letter.
The Package.
The Package.
Also known as The Package Was Too Small.
The Package. All right, 1941, Citizen Kane, Here Comes Mr. Jordan, How Green Was My Valley, Meet John Doe, Men of Boys Town, Sergeant York, Suspicion, The Little Foxes. Most of these are actually based on books. And a pretty big reason why they're based on books is there was a war on, and all the writers were getting drafted.
So Jenna has a question for you, Gloria.
Sorry.
It's like I might have missed this in a connectivity blackout moment, but Glory is drinking poor unfortunate souls out of her cup.
Doesn't
Maybe.
everybody? It's a little salty, to be perfectly honest.
There is a company on that at least sells, at least through Amazon, that makes mugs for a lot of pop culture things that I highly recommend. They are dishwasher safe. They are excellent quality. And they are surprisingly low cost for their quality. That mug is not even $30.
It is a dishwasher safe and microwave safe.
Mm-hmm. Like, it is.
I like because I'm klutzy. So this one has something for me to hold on to on this side. Not that the mug itself is heavy. It's not. It's just I'm klutzy.
Yeah, actually, I just weighed it. The mug itself weighs 22 ounces, and it holds about 22 to 24 ounces. Like,
Yeah.
it's a good sized mug inside, but like, it has a lot of detail, and that's most of their mugs. Like, the necklace is actually in relief. The little octopus tentacles have actual suckers that are, built out. Like, this is the kind of mugs they make, and they are really nice, and the price is really reasonable if you like, that fandom at all.
Oh, we're both clicking things. Do you think Hollywood / similar is going back to books more like in previous years, 1940s versus 2010s? So I think what's actually going on is okay, here's what's actually going on. We are in more than just a recession. We are in a serious long-term economic downturn because the people at the very top, the incredibly wealthy, I'm not talking about people who make $1 million a year. I'm talking about people who make hundreds of millions a year, if not more so, are not redistributing the wealth. So the majority of the people at the bottom just literally do not have discretionary income like they used to. And that means so many industries that serve the majority are not making the money they used to. So the music industry is not making the money they used to, the movie industry, the TV industry, all of these industries that are to serve the regular people.
Anytime you see an article that says millennials are killing something,
right? Yes, correct.
Those are the industries that serve the masses.
Yeah, so that is the issue at hand. Is these industries are struggling. What do industries do when they struggle? But they go back to tried and true. That is the whole point of tried and true. Is it's a sure bet. They go back to the stuff that they know for a fact makes money. They know for a fact people like it and will buy it. And that includes things like old books that were very successful and that are still popular, that still sell a fair amount. So Little Women, it used to be once every 10 to 20 years they made a Little Women movie. And now it's every 2 to 3 years they're making a new Little Women. I don't understand this. But Little Women, number one, is out of copyright. So they can make it without having to pay the original author or the estate that goes with that author. And they're just paying a script doctor to fix up the script. That's all. So they're going to pay somebody who's already on staff so they don't have to pay them any extra. And it's a sure bet. Little Women is a perennial evergreen title. It's something that's always popular. People are always, oh, I remember Little Women when I was a girl. Here, let me take you, my child, to it. It's something that people are always going to have their kids watch.
And to the other side of this, of also why are they doing this, is that they are looking for materials that are pre-marketed. So whenever someone says that, oh, I don't want to be indie published, I just want to get trade pub because I don't want to deal with marketing and all those troubles, it's like, guess what? There's no way around it anymore.
Oh yeah, like when somebody says I want to get trade pub traditionally published instead of indie published because I don't want to have to do marketing promotion, it's like, you could just anytime you hear anybody say that in real life or on a YouTube video, I want you to go ahead and imagine my cackling in the background, because that's exactly what I'm going to do when I find out. I'm going to cackle, a knowing cackle.
Because the trade publishers now will only pay you for a book if it's already got a following that you have already created, because they know there is a market for it. They are not going to create a market for your story. They are just going to look for markets that already exist and that they can capitalize on and make a profit from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't already have a large following for your stories, they're not interested. There's the real reality of whether you're indie or traditional. They're looking for those who already have marketed their stories and they have a proven market. So like that's why they're making a sequel to Enola Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is out of copyright, and Enola Holmes has a decent
Following
around the internet who's already interested in this product.
Both the book and the movie has a decent following. I think there's actually like a whole bunch of Enola Holmes books, from what I recall.
There are. But that's why they're making a second movie.
Like there's a handful. There's like 5 or 7, maybe more than that. There's a bunch.
They only made the first movie because it already had a big following in the book. And the book only got picked up after she had sold a lot.
Like maybe it was 8 different titles. I don't remember. But it's a lot. It was more than I realized. And there's the reason why they did it is because it essentially was already marketed.
So the real answer is they are looking for stories that are already marketed. So yeah, they will be going back to older books, but they're also just new movies and stuff will be ones that are from already marketed, already established stories.
Which doesn't mean it has to be traditionally published. It can be indie published as long as it has a very established market. That's all.
To give you a sense of how bad the trade publishers are at figuring out what will sell, they released a dirty little secret of 50% of trade published books never sell more than 12 copies.
No, I thought it was like 80%.
Okay, maybe it was. But like a huge percentage of them don't even sell 12 copies.
Which indie books usually sell more than 12 copies a year.
Which is why trade publishers now are mostly looking at the indie publishers for who to pick up as a writer and who to essentially just remarket their already made books of, oh, maybe there's more of a market that hasn't seen you because you're indie published and you're a smaller. Maybe if we can just expand how many people know about you, they'll buy even more of these books, is what they're thinking.
So, okay.
I mean, how many Citizen Kane title ripoffs have we seen over the decades of Citizen so-and-so, Citizen this, Citizen that?
All right, 42. Bambi, Casablanca, excuse me. Joan of Paris, The Magnificent Ambersons, Mrs. Miniver, The Pied Piper, Pride of the Yankees, Random Harvest. Day of Wrath, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Jane Eyre, Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. What a name.
Well, that's what they're named after.
I know.
Blimps are named after the person Blimp.
I know, but still. The title derives... Hold on, I gotta open this up. Let's see. The title derives from the satirical Colonel Blimp comic strip by David Lowe, but the story itself is original. Very interesting. Oh, I have seen these comics. Okay, anyway. So Proudly We Hail, The Song of Bernadette. I had to watch that in college. Watch on the Rhine. The Children Are Watching Us. Going My Way. Lifeboat. Mr. Skeffington. Passage to Marseille. Secret Command, Since You Went Away, Till We Meet Again, To Have and Have Not, Wilson. A bunch of these are riffs on known songs. Since You Went Away, Till We Meet Again, To Have and Have Not is a quote from Shakespeare. The children are watching us is a common phrase, right up there with little pitchers have big ears. The Bells of St. Mary's, Brief Encounter, Children of Paradise, Corn is Green, I Know Where I'm Going, Leave Her to Heaven, Lost Weekend, Mildred Pierce, Rome, Open City, The Southerner, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Weekend at the Waldorf. So, for instance, I know I could do, let's see, Weekend at let's see, what is a hotel that people know about?
The Holiday Inn.
Weekend at the Holiday Inn. Weekend at the Marriott.
Or for, you know, for less classy, Weekend at the Motel 6.
Or like, because you wouldn't want to like have to pay or worry about, you know, using a name of established hotel. You could, you know, call it whatever you want. Weekend at the Hotel Guinevere.
Mm-hmm. Jen is like, wow, back before Weekend was standardized.
Yes. Yes, it was. Exactly.
It's like Breakfast at Tiffany's follows the same kind of vibe / formula.
Yeah, Children of Paradise. Like there's like Children of a Lesser God. There's Children of, and it's usually like a utopia or a dystopia. So, you know, like you could honestly say something to that effect. Of Children of Ignorance, for instance. Or, and it's not necessarily about children at all. It's actually about adults, you know, of Children of the Foxglove Gang. Anyway, let's see, The Best Years of Our Lives. Like a bunch of these are books. Best Years of Our Lives, Dragonwyck. A period drama. It was, I wonder what this one's based on the novel Dragonwyck by Anya Seton. Satan? Let's see. Raised in 1844 Greenwich, Connecticut by her straight-laced low church parents. What is this term? Refers to those who give little emphasis to ritual. Okay. Ephraim and Abigail Mirandawell, let's see, is a farm girl who often daydreams of a more romantic and luxurious life outside the farm. Miranda gets her opportunity when her mother receives a letter from their distant cousin. La la la. Miranda manages to convince her parents to let her go to Nicholas's estate of Dragonwyck Manor as companion to his 8-year-old daughter, Katerine. Over time, Miranda learns that Nicholas and his wife, Joanna, are estranged from each other and from their daughter. She also hears from the servants that the Van Ryn bloodline is cursed, as only they could hear the harpsichord played by the ghost of Nicholas's great-grandmother, Azilda, whenever misfortune befalls the family. I need a copy of this movie. That sounds like nonsense. I am here for this nonsense. Okay. Gilda. Which, yeah, I've seen that movie. Talk about a femme fatale. Great Expectations, Humor-esque, It's a Wonderful Life. Minshu no Teki? Oh, it's a Japanese film. Okay, I was like, what? No Regrets for Our Youth. Pasai Utamaro and His 5 Women. Another Japanese historical film. Based on the novel by the same name. Even in Japan, they were making films based on books because they did not have enough writers to go around. Itself is a fictionalized account of the life of printmaker. Oh, very interesting, actually. The Bishop's Wife. Oh, how many copies? How many different variations of The Bishop's Wife?
Oh, God.
Has been produced.
There's another perennial. It's right there with Little Women.
Yes. The Vicar's Wife. The Pastor's Wife. It's Somebody's Wife. The Baker's Wife. The Policeman's Wife. You can honestly take anything about a woman who's married and what her husband does. The Garbage Man's Wife. Honestly, I would still probably flip it over and read the back cover blurb as long as the cover looked interesting. Let's see. Black Narcissus, again, using that color of a flower and the name of the flower.
And it's an unusual combination.
Black
Narcissus
rose.
doesn't usually come in black.
Yeah, so black roses, black peonies.
I was actually seeing a fun one, the peacock peonies.
Yes.
Actually, no, sorry, the peacock posy. There's one that people are like, wait, what?
What? A double life, gentleman's agreement. Isn't that what that Strangers on a Train
yes.
is on? Miracle on 34th Street. And again, yes, you can do a miracle on Dawson Street or a miracle in Kansas City. You can literally do a miracle anywhere. And there you have a title. Morning Becomes Electra. Oh, wow. Isn't that is like such a great freaking title, isn't it? Which is based up on the play Morning. It's a play cycle also called Morning Becomes Electra, of like, and that of morning becomes so, like the look of grief is good on you, which essentially is actually referenced in the first season of Fleabag. So it is still relevant. Sea of Grass, Shoe Shine, Another Part of the Forest, Bicycle Thieves, Corridor of Mirrors, Drunken Angel, The Fallen Idol, Germany Year Zero, Hamlet, I Remember Mama. Oh, that's an iconic one. Johnny Belinda. I had to watch that in college as well.
Oh, another trick of these, though, is take a title of a story that's similar to yours, sort of an older comp title, you might think of it, from like a decade or two or more from, and do your own riff on it, and then your audience is already instantly primed for your type of story. So, like, if you say A Miracle on Dawson Street, they're going to assume this is some sort of about faith, quite possibly probably around Christmas, and sort of, a surprise bit of, what do you call miracle? A theological surprise that, happens to save everyone. Of like, that was sort of what at the first hour, what Eva was talking about with romance titles are all very similar. Well, that's in part because romance writers are voracious readers.
Yes.
And they're looking for more stories like the stories they enjoy. So if you use a title that's similar to the titles of ones they've read and liked, they are more likely to read it because they're like, okay, I'll be going back to this type of story. Hence, very popular writers tend to create a title style so that their readers know this is another one. What was it? Love finds you in. And it would be a real town somewhere in America. The Love Finds You series. In mystery, there's the Cat.
Which is really an anthology series, by the way. Yeah. It's written by different authors. It's just the publisher's the same, Love Finds You In. And it originally did not start with the publisher who's publishing them now. So, yep. And so, like, again, but like to this day, I still think about the Love Finds You series because it was wildly popular among our romance readers. And it's a kind of neat little naming convention. I think about it often when I think about my own lack of love life. But does love find me in this town? No.
But I mean, that's where the Cat Who series or the numbered series. I can't remember who it was. It's One for the Money.
Yeah, like. But there was that was it one of the Efron sisters?
Yeah, I think so.
And there was also the A is for something, the alphabet series.
But it tells your readers that this is going to be a story similar to this. So like Love Finds You, even though it's written by different writers, they know it's going to be in that town, and the town will feature in this way.
But again, I want to point out in the mid to late 1940s were economically a very uncertain time in America. In part because there had been so many changes because of the war, and so many, people had died, that there was, I can't remember the official term, but there was a loss of a lot of knowledge in so many people dying. So there were not the old experienced people to come back to these jobs, unfortunately. And so one of the things that in this economic uncertain time in the mid to late 40s, well, the whole 40s really, they went to books that were had again established name recognition, because they knew people would come going, oh wait, I watched that book. I mean, I read that movie. I mean, why can't I talk? I read that book, or I meant to read that book. Why did I go watch the movie? Maybe I'll read the book after if it's any good. So, but yes, All the King's Men. It's based on the novel by Robert Penn Warren. Blue Lagoon. Yeah, I bet you didn't know. Federal Agents versus Underworld Inc.
I mean, that's a great title right there.
Yeah, it is. The File on Thelma Jordan. The Heiress. Intruder in the Dust. So many of these are based on novels. This one's based on a book by William Faulkner. Late Spring, My Foolish Heart. Ostani Etap, They Live by Night. Under Capricorn.
But yeah, just it's a see what people did before and then have fun with it yourself. There's no, it's truly, there's no bad titles. There's no wrong titles. There's just more and less interesting titles.
Mm-hmm.
There is a title, any title's correct depending on the story. I love the romantic comedy.
Mm-hmm. Well, these are romantic comedy drama films. Babyface Morgan. What a name.
Blithe Spirit.
A Boy, a Girl, and a Bike. I want to point out the picture. It includes a picture of a bike, of the drawing of a person on a bike. I don't get it. No Time for Comedy. Once Upon a Honeymoon. You could do that again. Remember, and then based on that idea, there is Once Upon a Mattress. Which you may be familiar with that romantic musical comedy. You can have Once Upon Anything. Once Upon a Murder. Once Upon a Fallen Angel. Once Upon a Mustang. I don't know. You just could do anything. Flight Angels, Follow the Boys, Down Argentine Way, which is also a song. Designed for Scandal. Stars as a judge targeted by a newspaper tycoon unhappy with her decision in his divorce case.
I mean, it is Ross and Russell.
Yes.
I'd probably watch it no matter what.
Remember the Night. The Gentle Sex. The Girl from Manhattan. Good Sam. Scooter Who, Scooter Hey. Based on the novel of the same name. Why, Lord? Why? The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. The Sky's the Limit. Swing Hostess. Which that's from Swing Shift. So restaurants would also have swing hostesses.
And I mean, to give you an idea also of creativity sometimes works even better when it's riffing on other ideas. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty from that one versus is that the one that was part cartoon or was that the next one? I can never remember. But there's been 3 or 4 versions of Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Each one of them are actually very different. They more
I don't think this one is the cartoon. It's based on the 1939 short story of the same name by James Thurber. Danny Kaye as a young daydreaming proofreader for a magazine publishing firm, and Virginia Mayo as the girl of his dreams.
And each one takes the bare bones concept of Secret Life of Walter Mitty and reworks it for a very different idea.
I'm back.
Hello. And so each story state really is on its own, especially in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid, I enjoyed the cartoon Secret Life of Walter Mitty, but
Mhm.
I've been surprised that over the last decade, about at least once a year, I will rewatch Ben Stiller's version of
Yeah.
Secret Life of Walter Mitty because it's a very different, but it's an interesting story to me now.
But like, there's the Secret Life of Anything. I watched a whole BBC series of the Secret Life of, and it was farm animals, y'all. There was one episode was the Secret Life of Chickens. Another
Secret Life of
episode was
Elk.
the Secret Life of Cows. And the third episode of the series was the Secret Life of Pigs. And I loved all 3 episodes of this. And it was very interesting.
The Secret Life of Bees.
Yes, the Secret Life of Bees. But you could have the Secret Life of anyone or anything. The Secret Life of Mrs. Joan Samurai. I don't know. And it would be like, okay, all right, Joan Samurai, what's going on in your life? And then I'm going to flip it over to read the back cover blurb.
I mean, really, Glory, right there, that could be the title for the Secret Life of Marty.
Oh, yes, it's true. Yeah, of our grandma. Because Tom wants Grandma Marty told me many stories of her, not her childhood too, but of her adulthood. She turned out to be a very interesting person who essentially led a double life that she kept secret from her sons and her husband. Well, one of her sons. Our father knew about all her secret doing. But her older son and her husband did not. And right before she died, a few years before she died, she spent a whole month every morning over coffee because she liked how I made her coffee. And she would tell me a new story about her secret life. And then some of it wasn't even that secret, but it was sort of secret, where at least a good part of the family didn't know what she was doing, but it wasn't technically a secret. She just didn't tell about it. And I didn't know it was a secret. And I would mention these things to other family members who didn't know the secret.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. So some people experience trauma 50 years later after the event because they didn't know that's what happened to their family dog and other things.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
That was a rough Thanksgiving.
So awkward. But
You
anyhow.
think 50 years later you'd be over it. Turns out, no.
You'd think you'd be over it. But anyway. But my point just being, Grandma knew she didn't have long. She'd already had her first stroke. And she knew that, essentially the clock was ticking for her. And I guess she wanted me to know. She felt that these stories would be immortalized with me. And I didn't think much of it when she told me these because it just was yeah, my grandma's awesome stories. But now that I am more than 20 years older, and I've only just started telling Tom some of these stories after what had happened when I inadvertently opened my mouth a couple times around my uncle. I kept my mouth shut because I didn't know who didn't know or who would be upset at the stories of Grandma. So my mom knew all the stories, but she's passed away. And I've only recently started telling them to Tom. And Tom's like, you should really write these down. So Tom didn't know that Grandma had a secret job working for the NAACP, recruiting young African-American students to go to college on scholarships. And she would literally drive in the middle of the night from the Mississippi Gulf Coast to the Mississippi Delta, which is a couple 100 miles away, to recruit these students in the middle of the night, driving in a convertible owned and driven by a 6'4" black man. And his code name, his NAACP code name was Pookie. And her husband died never knowing she did this. She also at the same time was spying on the Republican Party. Her husband, Grandpa Rudy, was a regional chapter president for a while, and she spied on the Republican Party for the NAACP at that time. like literally listening in at the door and debriefing her husband, and then reporting to the NAACP everything the Republican Party was up to. And that was from the mid to late 40s all the way through the 60s.
Wow.
So yeah, her husband died not knowing she did that. Her oldest son didn't know, but my father knew. And yeah, so she told me all about these adventures starting when I was a kid, actually. And yeah, when I opened my mouth up to my uncle long after my dad and grandma had died, and he didn't know, and he's like, Mom never told me. Why would she? That's betrayal. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's why she didn't tell you. But yeah, that's so The Secret Life of Marty. I mean, maybe we will. Actually, you know what? We should write that down. Anyway, so that's why Tom said that. So let's see. Okay, more titles. I live in Grosvenor Square. You honestly, you could do that. I live in wherever. Kiss the bride goodbye. Kiss the assassin goodbye. Kiss the baker goodbye. Yeah, anything.
Kiss the baby goodbye.
Baby goodbye. The talk of the town. The lady is willing. Little old New York. Lucky partners. A man betrayed. Meet John Doe. The well digger's daughter. Woman of the Year. You can play with the well digger's daughter in any way you want, such as the teacher's son. The anything, and then their son or daughter or child. The baker's daughter. The baker's son, the baker's child, and so on,
And another thing, like a lot of these titles remind me of, because you said, like, most people here even probably don't realize how many of these titles are references in songs.
Mm-hmm.
Is
The
go
Nun's
find
Sister.
the
I like
Nun's
it.
Sister.
I like it.
Is go find current popular music. Just
Mhm.
go find like where are the 20 most popular songs right now, and go find out what their hooks are in the chorus, and make a title based on that, because that's what they're doing for a lot of these titles. Is these are actually part of the hooks
Mhm.
of well-known contemporary songs. Like The Lady is Willing
Yeah,
is
that's
from a
actually a song.
song at the time.
You Came Along is actually a song, or it's the hook from a song. But I remember my father used to hum it. My grandma used to hum it. You Came Along is a hook from a song, a very popular song at the time.
The Sky's the Limit is also
Mm-hmm.
a well-known song. That's the hook. The Talk of the Town. You can look up a lot of these and you'll suddenly go, wait, these were also songs. Like, yes, because that song essentially pre-marketed. It prepared the audience ahead of time to be familiar with this phrase and title, so they're now more interested. Because that's really
Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most. That's actually a hook from a song. But it's a romance song. It's a romantic song, and you can use that. Yeah, they're all cliches. We're both clicking things again. Okay. So, and I have one more. I have to find. Thought I had one more.
Talk of the Town, absolutely. But that's the beauty of cliches. Cliches are simply a shorthand meaning of something is overused. Something is very well known, that it's a phrase everyone says. Well, guess what? It's something they're familiar with. People are curious about something they're familiar with, but they don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. 1940s romantic musicals. And again, I'm just using the 40s because it's a very easy decade to find. That's all. I'm not saying like, oh, the 40s were the pinnacle of titling. They're not. It's just, I know that there will be a real variety in the 40s. The 30s. So, okay, the reason why is in the 30s, a lot of movie studios were having to close because the Depression really was affecting places. And a lot of movie studios were getting bought up. So the 40s were the height of, there were still plenty of movie studios, but not so many who did not know how to make movies. So by this point, they were all getting kind of used to making film. All right, let's go collegiate. That is literally a song title. Living in a Big Way, Love and Revenge, Lulu Bell. That's also that's the name of a hook in a song. Luxury Liner, which is a phrase that was known at the time. Anchors Away. I think we all know that song. Almost Married. Atlantic City. Machine Gun Mama. Oh, I think that actually was a song, though. Make Believe Ballroom. The Mayor of 44th Street. I think that actually was a song as well. Moonlight in Havana. I know that was a song. Music in My Heart. Musical Romance. My Love Came Back. Beware. Black Capes. Brazil. I think Brazil was a song, actually. So you could have... Honestly, you could just do the mayor of any location ever. The mayor of my heart. The mayor of
Timbuktu.
The mayor of the Black Pearl. The mayor, and like you literally have any.
And like you can do as upscale or downscale, because I just thought of like the truly downscale. The mayor of Dog Stump Pond.
There you go. What a weird name. I'm going to flip it over and look at the back blurb. So, again, Calendar Girl, that was a song. Carnival in Costa Rica was a song. New Orleans, Night and Day, that's a song. Night and Day, you are the one. That's a Cole Porter song that they made into a play based on the song. That was weird.
Yeah.
And it was a really weird musical. Pardon My Rhythm. You could honestly do Pardon My Anything.
Presenting Lily Mars.
Pardon My Love. Pardon My Girlfriend. Pardon My Mustang. Pardon My Children. You play with any of that. Pinup Girl, The Pirate, Pot of Gold, presenting. I like that. Presenting whomever. Pardon My Barbecue Sauce. I mean, that sounds like like as if there's a curse thing that, and they're trying to like change it. You know how people, instead of saying shut up, they say shut the front door. And it's like, pardon my barbecue sauce. Down to Earth. Don't Get Personal. Doll Face. Dancing in the Dark. Down Argentine Way. That's a song for sure. Edie Was a Lady. Anybody can be a lady. Jim was a lady. Aunt Ethel was a lady. Auntie Morris was a lady. You know, like, or Auntie Morris was a hell of a guy. It could be anything. And you can really play with it, particularly if you have, like, this story revolves entirely around one character. So it could be anything. Jimmy was one hell of a mayor. Eve knew her apples. I think that's actually based on a song. Rattan, Road to Happiness, Road to Zanzibar. Do you remember all the road movies?
Oh, yes. But I mean, and part of it, and that was also where some of the songs actually came after the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a way of marketing the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Road to Zanzibar is actually a popular song at the time, and people would hum and sing it, and then they would want to go see it.
I do want to there's the Shocking Miss Pilgrim, and again playing on that, presenting so and so. Presenting Miss Pilgrim, the Shocking Miss Pilgrim. Adam knew his snakes. Oh,
I feel like that's a gay rom-com right there.
I mean, I'm definitely gonna flip it over and read the back cover. But like honestly, the Shocking Mr. Jones, the Shocking, Miss. I think The surprising Mr. Phillips. If you have a main character where the story really revolves around, you can do a title like that. The Fabulous Dorseys, Fiesta, The Fleet's Inn, The Flirtation of Girls, Follow the Boys, Footlight Serenade, The Glass Mountain, The Great American Broadcast, The Quiet Megan McCarthy. Dun dun dun. Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sing for Your Supper, Seven Sweethearts, The Sky's the Limit, Smiling Through, The Soul of a Tango, Spring Parade, The Stork Club. Oh, you know there's going to be babies. Sweet Rosie O'Grady, Swing in the Saddle, Swing Out Sister, Swing Parade of 1946. The Harvey Girls. I actually was just watching that a week or two ago. It's on HBO Max right now. Here Come the Waves. So the Waves, there was the Wax and the Waves. The Unraveled Life of Gertrude. Ooh, I like it.
That is actually a pretty good title. Like, I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when are you gonna write it, Eva?
Like, that's how you. That's like, you know already ahead of time. Oh, this is about a life that's about to go south.
Yes,
Go on.
I like it. I like it.
How bad does it get?
It's gonna be a hot mess express. That Midnight Kiss. There's a Girl in My Heart. They Met in Moscow. This Time for Keeps. Three Daring Daughters. Thrill of a Romance. Tin Pan Alley. Tonight and Every Night, which I think is actually a song. Two Girls and a Sailor. Up in Central Park. I Dude It. What the hell? I Married an Angel. I Met You in Naples. I Wonder Who's Kissing Her Now. That's a song. I'm from Arkansas. In the Good Old Summertime. Oh, how many times have I watched that? I have such a weakness for this one. Irene. It's a Date. John Loves Mary, which I think actually may be a song.
Ooh, Lake Placid Serenade. That sounds
Kansas
cool.
City Kitty. Ladies of the Chorus. Lake Placid. It could be anywhere. It could be anybody, like,
Lake Pontchartrain Serenade.
or just Kansas City Serenade, Toronto Serenade.
The Saskatchewan Serenade.
What'd you say, Tom?
The Saskatchewan Serenade. So many layers.
Also known as College Sweethearts. Concerns a vaudeville singer who comes to a floundering college to instill values and so what the hell? The Yanks are coming. You were never lovelier.
Two Girls and a Sailor.
AuthorTube Serenade. Yep.
If only I could finish this book.
But yeah, just to show, like, seriously, you could, if you don't want to do movies, you could do top 40 song hits from, any decade, pick a decade, and start going through their pop or their country music, whenever those genres started charting. And just, like, play around with the titles, like, for your story. There's no right or wrong. There's only fun. And I do want, again, to remind everybody, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. It's meant to be
several titles we've done in the past few months have been our own jokes about Fall Out Boy song titles. If Fall Out Boy was titling this show, what would they call it? It's just a little joke riff, but it gives the inspiration to create a title that's interesting to our audience.
Like today's show title.
Yep.
Yeah, I was like thinking like I was seeing what Eva was saying about Megan I was thinking The Quiet Life of Judith. or whomever.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't found like the perfect name yet, but I'm definitely on the hunt for it.
The Unraveling Life of Judith.
The Anonymous Life of Judith.
Mm-hmm. The Double Life of Judith.
Yeah. I don't want to be so on the nose, though.
But you're trying to
Twisted
find an
Life
audience
of
that's interested
Judith.
in that.
Mm-hmm. The Twisted Life of Judith. Whatever her last name is.
The entwined life.
The kiddo just tried barbecue beef tonight. He just came back to let me know he wants to try a hamburger, and they are now making one, even though we literally just ate barbecue. Very nice. The Unraveling Life of Judith. The Unraveling Secrets of Judith.
Ooh, The Unraveling Secrets of Judith. I may have to write that one down.
Of like, yeah, just play with it. Have a good time. Get a little wild. Go a little far off of, the train tracks on it. And just play with it. Because if it intrigues you, it might very well intrigue readers. And that's really what you want to do. The title is the first opportunity to hook a reader.
Princess, whatever you're doing, stop it.
Ooh, The Unraveling Memories. The Unraveling Memories of Judith Malou. Whatever her name is, I don't remember.
Piercy is her last name.
The Unraveling Past of Judith Piercy. Because you never know, like, when you come back to, titles you've written down, when you come back a couple days later after you've slept, the back of your brain may have, like, some new twists on it to, like, make it even better. That you just essentially needed to, quote, sleep on it.
Mm-hmm.
I have been very impressed with the secret of sleeping on something.
But you do need to write it down, because when you sleep on it, half the time you can't remember what the original was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, there's so much, as I've gotten older, where people talk about how much of a genius some, the latest artist du jour is, and I'm just like, they literally are just riffing on this. Like, this has all been established and done. They literally just changed it this one way. I mean, if you ever want to see like how little it takes to change something for people to consider you an absolute genius that you just sprung forth, I have never seen a better example than the movie Airplane. The movie Airplane is a almost verbatim lift of a movie that came out 30 years before, where they just changed the visuals a little bit.
Wow.
But almost all of the script is actually lifted whole from the previous movie. And they just changed, they added in some gags. It was originally a drama, a very serious movie. But they just changed the visuals a little bit, and they put in some sight gags, and all of a sudden, it's one of the best, comedies of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't write almost anything, because it's knowing how to put context in.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, never be afraid of, like, I'm not changing that much, but people will think, because it's just showing how to change it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jenna, the thing about it ending careers with Vanilla Ice is Vanilla Ice claimed to do it originally, rather than he literally stole a riff, an actual musical riff, and did not acknowledge the person who actually composed it. It's not okay to plagiarize, but it's absolutely okay to riff. And that was the real difference. Was he was like, no, I came up with this independently, versus you absolutely did not. Here's the music.
And like for Airplane, they bought the rights for the original movie just to make sure. No one else ever really realized it, but it was we know what we're doing. Let's make sure we have the rights.
And like, for instance, R.L. Stine has said openly like that he just really takes a lot of movies he saw as a kid, a lot of scary movies, and he makes them into Goosebump stories. And he'll literally tell you which movies they are. He's like, okay, it was like the Egyptian mummy one. And I called it, I can't remember the title right now, but he does mention these in his masterclass. He just thought, hey, these kids are never going to watch these movies. How about if I just make it, into a story for children?
Now, this is a story all in itself. This one message, like, OMG, so I'm back. What does that mean? Tell me more.
Yeah, it's very much a hook. Charlie is back from committee meeting.
Yes.
So
how'd it go?
So yeah, that's what I wanted y'all to see is like you can play with, say, naming conventions of other media and really see what you get. Even you can even go outside of your genre. So let's say you're writing, like for instance, a domestic drama, and you instead go to film or music titles for romance, or country music, and go from there. Now, yeah, some of the stuff you riff may be more appropriate for science fiction or horror, and that doesn't apply to what you're writing. But you never know when you're going to need to like go back to these titles and like, oh, is there anything to mine here that I've already done the work? You just have no idea. And that's why I do recommend like going through movie titles, song titles, anything you got, book titles, old book titles from 100 years ago. The sequel to We're Back. Yeah, all the responsibilities. My life is definitely different now. Sigh. Lay sigh.
You had free time.
And then it's gone.
All gone.
Eva has opened herself up to messaging her. She loves making up titles. Very nice. Because I am absolute crap at it.
But yeah, there's so many sources and riffing and other than, occasionally people too full of themselves. Like there was a fascinating little, interviews and stuff with Coolio, since he just passed away, and so old interviews are coming back up of like he looked back and he's like, I can't believe my responses to Weird Al wanting to do, a parody of Gangster's Paradise, but it was because I was so self-serious about myself. Now I look back, it's like, no, it's a great parody. I love it. But most people are fine. Like if you tell them like, oh no, I was just riffing on this song. I thought it was an interesting inspiration. And then I did this of like, everyone's cool. It's just when you're like, oh no, I'm wholly original. I don't use anyone else, that people are like, what are you talking about? I've brought receipts.
I mean, like, okay, so the book title, A Song of Fire and Ice, came, 60, 70 years after there's some, I think it's a play, A Song of Love and something. Maybe it's Love and Betrayal. Like, there is nothing 100% original in this world, and that is fine. Everybody just have a good time being inspired by each other. Because, just, everything original has already been done. Now we're working with the clay other people made. Don't worry. I used to worry about having to be original. Oh, I can't think of anything original. Tom's like, there's literally nothing original. What are you talking about?
If it is truly, truly original, no one has context, no one's interested. There's the other secret they don't talk about. People don't want truly original work. They want derivative, with familiar tropes. This was remarked as one of the real problems with the story Orlando by what's her name?
Virginia Woolf.
Of it was creating an entire new genre at the time. And so it has no tropes to be based on. So it is actually a very difficult work to understand.
It can be confusing to read.
Just because there's nothing like it. So it's understandable where people are very mixed about the story Orlando. Versus there's so much tropes around zombies or high school that they can be contradictory, but they just would need to know what set of tropes are you using for this established genre, and people are happy because they now got 90% of the context. The rest is your story. I mean, you say domestic drama, the first thought everyone's going to have, what happens in the kitchen?
Yep.
Something's going to happen in the kitchen / breakfast nook.
It hits the fan in the kitchen. It always does.
And what's going to burn in the oven or on the stove? Do these need to play pivotal roles? No, they just know, and they're curious to see how you'll work it in. Because it's familiar, and so it's something to help them get into your story. And so, yeah, it's like, don't worry about being original. No one wants truly original. They're not interested in it.
I agree. So, does anyone have any further final thoughts?
Not that I can think of.
Have fun. Join us on Wednesdays on Twitch when we work on our own titles. Add in your own originality. That really helps us.
And it's good practice for everybody. I think these kind of skills, like coming up with titles and everything, it's a skill. It's not necessarily something that everyone has a natural talent for. But you don't need natural talent if you are willing to work at something to the point you build up a skill. And so it's a skill. Come and practice it with us, because I will always... You have no idea how bad I'm at this.
I remember a year ago, there's Megan going, well, I'm really bad at this. I just wanted to watch y'all. And now,
Megan's doing better than us.
Show you the best titles.
Yep. So next week, we are going to talk about writing book reviews and back cover blurbs, because that skill pretty much has a lot of crossover. It's pretty much the same skill, quite honestly. So we'd love to have you join us. We'd love to riff with you. We will continue to give you our Mad Lib cheats on how we do this. Because, why, yes, this is literally how I write book reviews. I will even, if you're lucky, I will read to you actual book reviews that I've written that have been published in magazines. And you can enjoy that.
And feel better about your own book reviews.
Yeah, feel better. And one of the book reviews I wrote was about Coolio's cookbook. So I think you'll enjoy. But I will read to you from my book reviews, and you will see how they're not really that different from book back cover blurbs. And in fact, several traditionally published authors have asked me to write their back cover blurbs, which, if you offer me enough money, of course I will. I need gas money like everybody. But anyway, my point just being, I want you all to learn how to do it. And I want you all to be able to take my secrets, and they're not going to be secret anymore. So you can do it and you can teach everybody else. It's going to be fantastic. And it also super fun. Also, I'm hoping if everybody gets better at writing book reviews, more people will write book reviews.
But useful book reviews.
Yes. Rather than, I liked it or I didn't like it, 4 stars. That tells me nothing. I'm trying to figure out if I want to read it. Because book reviews are for readers. They are not for the author. Yes. And then, as Charlie points out, Charlie will be in the Discord, in our Discord, Unicorn Council Discord. We will also be in the Unicorn Council Discord voice chat under the Clubhouse. Come and join us. If you are not already a member of our Unicorn Council Discord, there is a link down below in the doobly-doobs under my info. We'd love to have you join us. We just hang out. We chat. Some of us play games and even share our screen so other people can watch us play video games. It's fun. It's what we do on Mondays. Some of us cook, actually. I may bake a cake. I need cake. My required daily allotment of cake is low right now. It's what glories crave. See that look you're giving me, Tom.
I am thinking something you are no idea of.
So anyway, please do join us. If you need any technical support to get Discord to play right for you, we are also happy to help. Tom has the patience of a god. No, what has more patience than that? Gods don't have much patience. Tom has the patience of a very patient turtle and will actually help you fix your system. And for, the very low price of nothing, unless you want to contribute something, which of course we're not going to tell you no. But Tom will be happy to help you with your mic setup. If you're having computer issues or video card issues, we are very happy to help you so that you too can enjoy life in Discord, hanging out with us across the globe. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye. I'm waving you all off. Bye-bye.